Hello, this is Dan Reecer. I'm VP of Growth at Akala, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about Polkadot. There's other kind of longer videos where you can learn more about Polkadot, but more specifically, I'm going to be talking about what we call crowd loans and parachain slot auctions, which is kind of the process that teams have to go through in order to launch on Polkadot. We'll get into that all in a second. And we're going to be talking through this in about 20 minutes. So if there is a lot of information for you, definitely feel free to go back and re-listen to this once it's recorded and posted. As I mentioned, I'm working at Akala now. Previously, I was at Web3 Foundation, where I helped launch Polkadot and Kusama. And been in crypto for about 3.5 years now. Prior to that, I spent 4 years in the pharmaceutical industry and kind of took a big left turn in my career and came into crypto, which has been an absolute blast. But first, just to set some context, let's talk a little bit about Polkadot, what Polkadot is, and kind of who created Polkadot. So first, Gavin Wood is kind of the main kind of figure behind Polkadot. Gavin was the co-founder and previous CTO of Ethereum back when Ethereum first started. So Gavin co-founded Ethereum. He invented the Ethereum virtual machine, or the EVM, which we hear a lot nowadays with these different layer one blockchains implementing the EVM. So that's kind of Gavin's invention. That's still kind of being widely adopted across crypto. And then another thing that he created was Solidity, which is the programming language still used for all these EVM applications. Important context as we move into what he built on Polkadot. Rob and Peter here on the slide were also some of the original 3 co-founders of Polkadot. But what Polkadot is, I'm going to go back to this slide actually. What Polkadot is this multi-chain kind of environment of connected blockchains. What Gavin realized back when he built Ethereum was that these individual isolated blockchains wouldn't be able to scale in the long term, and we needed to have this kind of connective tissue between these blockchain networks instead of everything operating as isolated kind of islands. So Polkadot came about in about 2016, 2017. And with Polkadot, Gavin created this blockchain development framework called Substrate. So Substrate is kind of like the Polkadot SDK. If you know about like the Cosmos SDK, it's kind of a similar framework for custom building blockchain. So Polkadot is kind of a bet on customization of blockchain. So as we've seen previously, a lot of these networks like Ethereum have done a phenomenal job of getting uptake by developers. There's so many different applications built on Ethereum, from DeFi to NFTs to insurance to gaming. But one thing that Ethereum does is it tries to do a lot of different things at once, kind of a generic platform. What Polkadot's doing is going kind of a different route and betting on specialization. So all of these blockchains, each of these little gray squares you see here is a different blockchain that we call parachains, and each of these can be customized for a specific type of use case. So what I'm working on now, Akala, is a DeFi customized blockchain, or a layer one, but you'll have other blockchains built for privacy, built for gaming, NFTs, and what have you. In addition to what I just mentioned, Polkadot's solving a couple other problems. I'll mention just a couple of these. So security is an important one for teams. So the reason why Akala and all these teams want to launch on Polkadot is because Polkadot offers us that cross-chain ability, as I mentioned, but it also allows us to plug into Polkadot's existing security set. So all of these validator nodes, if you're familiar with, of course, like Bitcoin miners, Ethereum miners, with Polkadot, there's proof of stake validators. We, as Parachain teams that are wanting to launch our blockchain on Polkadot, we want to launch on Polkadot because Polkadot's existing validator set will also secure and validate our network. So we don't have to worry about going out and building this whole network of validators, getting them to go out and recruit a bunch of backing to make sure there's enough security there. So these are a few of the things that Polkadot's helping to solve. I mentioned this already. So the two kind of primary things Polkadot's doing is securing blockchains and connecting blockchains together. Each of these parachains, I'm just zooming in on this parachain right here from the diagram on the left. as I mentioned, these are all kind of going after specific use cases. And for each of these Parachain slots, it's not completely open. So there's actually this mechanism called Parachain slot auctions, where these Parachain teams, all who want to launch on Polkadot, are actually competing in an auction that I'll get into the details on in a little bit. Because there's limited slots, so the theoretical max is right now is around 100 Parachains that can launch on Polkadot, and it's just this mechanism that I believe the team came up with after observing what happened with ICOs and all these kind of more negative events that happened in 2017, 2018, where certain people in the community were sometimes burned because the teams who did these ICOs had no sense of accountability and needing to follow through on what they promised. So these Parachain slot auctions are a new way of kind of having a community-backed launch of these new crypto startups, and allowing people in the community to kind of get their piece of the network prior to the network's launch, so that they would have these tokens to be able to participate in governance and get involved in the network after launch. So with that background, let's get into some of the details on these Parachain slot auctions. And this is incredibly timely. This event is happening on November 10th. This recording is happening. The first Parachain slot auction starts tomorrow, so November 11th, and these are 7-day events. So couldn't be better timing here. And I do have some stats as part of this. The crowd loan part of this has actually been going since last Friday, so about 5 days. So I've got some numbers to show you. But let's first go into what is a Parachain slot auction. And one way to think about this is like a traditional home auction that we all know in the real world. In a standard home auction, as we know, you're coming to that auction and most likely coming as an individual. Let's say you're looking to buy a house and you're hoping to get it for $100,000, and that's your max. When you're in that auction, you've got a less competitive bet as an individual, maybe versus somebody who might have a higher cap of their ideal home cost. So maybe someone else is coming to the auction with 120K in mind, and your max is 100. So as soon as it gets past 100, you're kind of out of that auction, and you won't be able to win the home. But imagine you're able to come to the same auction, but you crowdfund funds from your family, your friends, and your neighbors, so that you can come to that auction and have a higher bid or a higher chance of winning that auction against the other people who are coming to that same home auction. So maybe for the person who came in as an individual at 120, you now as a crowd are able to come in at 130 and win that auction. The same thing happens for these Polkadot Parachain slot auctions. For these slots, there's an auction. All of these different blockchain teams or Parachain teams, including Akala, are basically competing for these slots on Polkadot, and you can bid in two ways. So number one is, like I mentioned, like an individual. So if a team has a lot of DOT, the Polkadot token is required for these auctions. So number one is a team might come in and bid as an individual. Or number two, which is much more common, teams might come in as a crowd and get their community to help back them with their dots to help increase that team's likelihood of winning the auction. That is called the crowd loan, and this is kind of this new model for helping to back these blockchain startups and give them a better chance of launching on Polkadot. And in return, you have a chance of earning the native token of that parachain. So the most simple way to explain this is you contribute or loan DOT. So you actually agree to loan this DOT for 96 weeks, which is nearly 2 years. And that's the duration of these Parachain slots on Polkadot. They're kind of like renting an apartment with a lease. There's a fixed duration, and then you have to just renew it after a couple years. In return for that DOT loan, then you earn crypto rewards in whatever native token of the Parachain team that you supported if they win the auction. So in Akala's case, when we win one of these auctions, the ACA token will be distributed to everyone who supported Akala with their DOT for our auction. Then the coolest part about all of this is that it's called a crowd loan because you actually get your original crypto back after 2 years. So You loan the dot, you earn this crypto reward, and then you also get your original dot back. So the only trade-off is that you're giving up the staking returns that your dot would have been earning over those 2 years, which is usually about 12 to 15%. So just an important thing to keep in mind. Crowd loans, as I mentioned, are going on right now. So there's a few ways to participate. A lot of teams, including Akala, have a website that we've custom built for kind of hosting these crowd loans and making it easy on people. There's also a lot of exchanges that are hosting this, including Kraken, Binance, OKEX, KuCoin, and Huobi, and then several mobile wallets, including PokeWallet, Fearless, and many others. When it gets down to it, here's the overall kind of timeline. So the crowd loan actually opened last Friday, so it can open before the Parachain auction begins. This allows people to begin, contributing their dot to these teams, so that on the during the auction, these teams have the dot and they can go in and bid with that dot to win the auction. As soon as a team wins, that means they've earned that slot on Polkadot and are basically eligible to be able to begin launching on Polkadot. In the case of these first 5 Parachain auctions that are going on right now for Polkadot, all 5 of the first teams will onboard and kind of begin launching on December 15th. So that's another important day to watch out for. And then as you see here in the pink, the Parachain slot or the lease of that slot works operates for 2 years. And then after those 2 years, the team in some form or fashion needs to renew that slot to remain live on Polkadot. So this looks complicated. It's actually not that bad. So let me just explain this very quickly. Just so you understand the mechanics, it's a 7-day auction. There's a 2-day kind of warm-up period. And then days 3 through 7 are really when it matters. And the cool part about these auctions, if you've ever done an auction on like an auction website, like eBay, for example, you know that there's this problem where people come in, they wait to the very end, and then they try to snipe with a really high bid at the end to win. With Polkadot's auctions, it's completely randomized. So we actually don't know when the winner is going to be selected until this end of the auction. And then there's this randomly selected time, or it's a block in time. So whoever is winning at that time, whoever has the highest bid, wins the auction. So in this case, this Parachain A team had the highest bid from this point on. So on day 4 at that specific point in time, they had the high bid. So they won the auction and earned the right to launch on Polkadot. And this is the full process that I just walked you through. So contribute the dot, the team goes into the auction, wins the auction. As soon as the team wins, one key thing to keep in mind is that all the dot that's contributed to that team is not touched by the Parachain team at all. This is not a fundraising event. This is mostly just a bootstrapping event to help that team launch. But all the dot, in this example, 50 million dot, is actually locked away in Polkadot in the relay chain, or like kind of the core of Polkadot, not touched by the team. So it's incredibly safe for contributors. There's no chance of a team kind of taking the money and running away with it like we saw with ICOs. And then at the same time, the tokens of the team are distributed to these same people back here who contributed the dot. So you get ACA. Akala begins to launch in this example, and then you might not be able to see this behind my camera, but this is showing the dot all being returned to these people after 2 years. So really cool model, brand new to crypto, and a lot of people are starting to kind of realize how cool and interesting this is. So glad that I'm able to walk you guys through how this works, and definitely start paying attention if you haven't already, because it's happening as we speak. This is one question that comes up sometimes is like, okay, so what if I back a team for auction number 1 and they're not able to win that? So as you can see up here, the crowd loan stays open. So all the dot that's contributed to a team, let's say team B, stays in that crowd loan and gives the team the opportunity to bid again in auction 2, 3, 4, and 5. This is a batch of 5 auctions. So if the team is not able to win one of these auctions after 5, then all the dot is returned automatically to you as a contributor. So again, no risk there if the team isn't able to win. There are a few. So one question that some of you may have also is, okay, after 2 years, what happens because the team has to renew that lease in order to stay live on Polkadot? There's a few things people can do. Some teams will host another crowd loan. I guess most teams will probably do that in a couple of years when we need to renew. In Akala's case, we've got this really cool Akala treasury. It's like an on-chain DAO for the protocol. And this allows us to actually bid our own DOT in future auctions. So that is kind of the route that we'll take. So we're at about 15 minutes now. I'm just going to summarize this and wrap it up with some stats from the current crowd loans to bring it home. So in summary, this is the most basic way to think about it. You contribute or loan your DOT, which basically locks it up for a couple years. You earn these crypto rewards from whatever parachain you back, and then after 2 years, you get your crypto back. If you are interested in the Akala crowd loan, one option that you may be interested in to solve this problem of the DOT being locked away for 2 years is this new product we built called Liquid Crowd Loan DOT. It's basically a derivative of your crowd loan DOT in order to unlock liquidity of that DOT, so it's not locked away for 2 years doing nothing. This LC DOT will then be supported in the Akala kind of DeFi ecosystem on any most DEXs that decide to build on Akala, as well as a collateral for minting stablecoins and things like that. So if you're a little bit more of an advanced DeFi user, that's an interesting thing to look at on Akala's website at akala.network if you're interested in that. These are the one example of rewards for these crowd loans. So usually teams will set aside a part of the supply for those rewards. And then there's basically a vesting period, and 20% of these will be, unlocked and liquid at launch. Now, last but not least, this is where things currently stand. So the crowd loan has been open since last Friday. We just yesterday crossed the $1 billion mark. So total DOT contributed to these crowd loans is now, in only 5 days, over $1.1 billion. Which is incredibly significant and will only continue to increase as we go through the next seven days. Akala is currently in the lead. We've got about 11.2 million DOT, which is about 1.1% of the entire DOT supply, and 600 or 570 million US dollars. One thing that I think is really cool too, 61,000 unique individuals around the world have supported this crowd loan. So it's an incredibly wide distribution of people, and very exciting for us to kind of be able to share in this launch with so many people around the world and just have this many users ready to go as soon as Akala's DeFi network launches. So that's it. Thanks for the attention. I know I threw a ton of information at you, so hopefully you get a chance to watch this, maybe go back and rewatch. We've got, I'm always happy to answer questions on Twitter. We've got a very active Discord for Akala where we answer questions all the time. So feel free to join us there. You can find that at our link tree here. And yeah, thank you for the team for inviting me to the conference today and being able to speak with you guys.